Welcome to Wolverine Confidential Podcast, brought to you by Corewell Health. I'm Ryan Zuke, and no Aaron or Andrew on today's episode, but we do have a special guest. Big Ten Network color analyst and former Michigan tight end Jake Butt is here joining us. Welcome to the podcast, Jake.
I appreciate you having me. Happy holidays. Also traveling for the holidays. I'm in Columbus right now, actually Pickerington, my hometown. So I'm behind enemy lines, as you want to say.
Yeah, no, obviously a big matchup upcoming for the Buckeyes. Still don't know their opponent. And college football playoff field has been announced, and I think that's a good place to start. I mean, it was a pleasure listening to you call games again on the Big Ten Network. And we appreciate your ball knowledge. So yeah, let's dive into the college football playoff, kicking off tonight with a doozy of a matchup. Alabama and Oklahoma game is in Oklahoma. Michigan played there this year. Great environment for a college football game. Odds makers are basically making this game a close toss up. Let's get your thoughts on this matchup and who you like winning it all this year.
Yeah, I more approach it from, the Big Ten angle as, the winner of this game goes on to play Indiana. And, I think a fun exercise a lot of people have been doing is like how many teams in this 12-team playoff actually have a real chance of winning a national title. And I think it's really 5. It's the top 4 seeds. And then, Oregon is also a team that I think could make a run. I don't think Alabama or Oklahoma are really set up. I think both teams are flawed. Obviously these two teams played earlier in the season and Oklahoma was able to beat Alabama in Alabama's home stadium. But if you watch the game, really Alabama kind of dominated it. I think they kind of doubled Oklahoma in terms of the yardage output, but Oklahoma's defense is aggressive. We're able to force turnovers and Bama was unable to execute in key situations. So I think whoever wins this game is going to have a tough outing against Indiana, which is still crazy to say. How I see it playing out, gosh, man, if it's a toss-up, I'd probably lean towards, the fact that Oklahoma has home field advantage. Like I'd probably give Oklahoma the slight edge, even though Bama's favored here. It's just I would much rather have Ty Simpson under center than Mateer, and it's probably going to come down to which quarterback can make plays there in the fourth quarter. Neither team can run the ball. I'd probably lean towards Oklahoma. And that would benefit Michigan fans. It seems like there's a strong push to go after DeBoer. So if he loses, he's certainly in the hunt for the coaching job at Michigan.
Yeah, most definitely. And no, it is interesting to how much of home field will play a factor. I mean, Michigan played there earlier this year, and Oklahoma is one of the schools that allows reporters to go on the field late in the fourth quarter. And I remember going down there for the final few minutes, and Michigan, as badly as they seem to be getting outplayed in that game, still had a chance to kind of make a little late run to make it a close game and tie it up at the end. And it got loud, and just Bryce Underwood seemed a little bit overwhelmed. The moment seemed really big there, so the crowd definitely seemed like it played a factor. But yeah, obviously the outcome could play a factor into the coaching search. But I guess in a general sense, first, do you think the committee got it right with the 12 teams they put in the field this year?
No, I don't. I disagree with the system and the structure and the process. My brother-in-law he's a graduate of Miami University, so there's a couple fans of the U in my extended family, and they were all excited. And I say like, don't you guys have an issue if the committee just randomly decided to flip Miami and Notre Dame at the last second? Like if head to head really mattered, why was Notre Dame ranked ahead of them all the way through? And then just you decide to flip them at the last second. I think we need to figure out a better process to take some of the power out of the hands of the committee. It's far too subjective right now. I have nothing against the G5 teams. Saban had an interesting proposal of giving them their own playoff. I think, if they earn the right to be in, they should be in. I thought Boise earned their spot in the 12-team playoff last year. They didn't earn a first-round bye. But again, that's because we've tried to create structures. We've tried to create a world that is going to allow us structure to give us a perfect 12-team playoff. The issue is football is imperfect. It's not fair. It doesn't make sense. And right now, the way the system's set up, we just put it in the hands of a committee to kind of just pick and choose what they care about and when they care about. They contradict themselves, like the fact that Ohio State loses, so they drop in the rankings. BYU loses, so they drop in the rankings. Alabama
Yeah.
loses, gets ran off the field, and they don't drop in the rankings. Like, right, there's just, and this is what happens when you put it in the hands of a human being. There's going to be human error and the contradictions. I'm just tired of it. And now, guess what we're doing? What are we doing? We're going to overcorrect it again, where Notre Dame gets like a special asterisk where they would make the playoffs regardless. If it was next year, they would make the playoffs because of some like MOU. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
Where as long as they're ranked inside the top 15, then they get an auto bid. So we're like selling out to the highest bidder here. It doesn't make any sense. It goes against the competitive spirit of college football. I think we need to figure out a better system, rethink how we go about our process.
No, I'm in 100% agreement with you too. And I guess as it comes to the G5 teams, it's like I don't mind them being in either, but like you have to run the table though. There is a data point there that
I
when you
know.
do play a Power Four, you got like Tulane got blown out by Ole Miss, so like there is that data point there too. So it's like, yeah, if you run the table, yeah, sure, you know what, you won all your games, you couldn't have done anything more, put them in. But like if you have a loss too, like it's hard to justify them being in there. And with Notre Dame, you mentioned you think you have 5 teams that have a legitimate shot at winning a national title. To me, if Notre Dame's in there, I think that's potentially
I
6 just
agree.
with what they've done
I
since
agree.
those losses. And even against those two games early in the season, I mean, one play here or there, like they win those games. Like they could have had an undefeated season this year. They have a Heisman Trophy finalist running back. CJ Carr was playing at a really high level. It would have been really interesting to see what they would have been able to do in the playoff. But
Just to interrupt you there too, it's like, here it's a perfect example of, the Notre Dame Miami debate. This is how it's an imperfect science. Like, okay, head to head does matter, but it can't be the only thing that matters.
mhm.
Otherwise, Florida State would be in over Alabama, right? So the fact that Notre Dame or Miami beat Notre Dame, fair, but you beat them on a last second field goal on the opening weekend of the season when Notre Dame was starting a freshman quarterback in his first ever start. I don't think 3 points is a deciding enough factor for me to just definitively say Miami deserves to be in over Notre Dame, just period. I think that that's close enough, especially considering the context that you have to have a debate. But again, like, why are we having a debate anyways? Why are we having athletic directors go around and coaches and players go around and politic for their program? Like, why have we created a structure where politics get to decide this? Can't we think of a system where it's fully decided on the field, where everybody knows the rules and stipulations and structure going into the season? They told us that in the 12-team playoff, we're going to incentivize scheduling better out of conference opponents, and we would benefit then as fans. Well, now we're doing the exact opposite. Texas is wondering, why did we schedule Ohio State? Notre Dame is wondering, why did they schedule A&M? So this is a lot of the things we've been promised. We're just going to go right back to where we were, and it'll probably be worse. With no crossover competition in the out of conference games.
For sure. And there's always counterpoints to everything too. It's like, okay, yeah, like if you beat Ohio State though, then that loss to Florida doesn't matter as much, and you're still in. So it's like
Yeah.
I don't know, it's an imperfect system, and yeah, something needs to be done. But yeah, let's transition now to Michigan. I mean, obviously last week's news completely shocked the college football world. I guess what was your reaction to the news? And if you're a player in that locker room right now, like how are you trying to push forward and still somehow prepare for a bowl game with all this going on?
I mean, there's no way you could ever be prepared for the way that unfolded. I mean, it's one thing to have your coach get fired, and that was tough to go through when I went through it with Brady Hoke and that entire staff. But the way everything unfolded, I mean, I know I felt sick to my stomach. I can't imagine what the players felt, and what the recruits and the families of these players felt, or the assistant coaches. I mean, there's a lot of people, let alone like the direct family affected. Like, there's a lot of people that are like really, really hurt by this, before we even get to the football talk and football sentiment. And it's just overall really, really unfortunate. It just is. I think back to, when Jim Harbaugh first got hired and he's talking about, being a Michigan man. Remember, it was like a week after he was hired. He's driving into Schembechler Hall for one of his early team meetings, and there's a car crash on the side of the highway. And Jim pulls off to the side of the highway to like aid the family. And I remember that, like, Jim was called Superman, and I'm like, that's what I think of when I hear Michigan man, and that's still true. But I get it why those outside of the program are, taking shots at and saying, hey, we're tired of hearing it at this point. I understand it. There's consequences to action. So this whole thing is super unfortunate. What I hope comes of this is, and I think they're doing the right thing. You have to do a full top-down investigation. You have to do an investigation of how you handled this investigation. Like, what you have to hope, if you're Michigan, is when you make the hire for your next head coach, that there's nothing that will ever surprise you. Everything is forward looking at that point. Like, it can just be a clean break of the past happened. Here's our new coach. We are moving forward. Look at Dusty May with the basketball. And I know basketball is different, but no one talked about Jawan until this, when we had to bring it up for context. Everyone just says, man, Dusty is a great coach, great person. That's a clean program. That's what you hope for Michigan. And I think as far as the players go, what you're seeing is there's no mass exodus to the portal. I think two recruits have asked to be released from their national letter of intent. I imagine that the players in the locker room and the recruits are observing the same things we're observing. And their thought process is, as far as football goes, Michigan's probably going to come out better on the other side of this. They're going to come out with a more proven head coach, with a more aligned athletic department and university and booster circle. So, in terms of the on-field stuff, Michigan is probably going to be better on the other side of this.
Yeah, you mentioned there hasn't been a mass exodus of players yet, and the recruiting class is still relatively intact, I guess. How difficult do you think Biff Poggi's job is right now, trying to kind of hold everything together in the meantime, while still, I mean, trying to maybe become the full-time head coach, but also, like, I mean, it's got to be a tough position he's in right now too. Would you say?
It's an impossible situation.
Yeah.
There's no training for this. There's no like manual. There's no, you can't type into Chat GPT, how do I handle? There's no precedent for this. The only precedent is to be like a good person yourself. And Michigan is so beyond lucky to have Biff Poggi. I mean, if you had to draft up, like, when you're going through uncertain times and chaotic times, you need strong leadership. The challenge for most places is when you're going through a time like this, you just fired your head coach. You have an interim president and an athletic department that is full of question marks. That is counterintuitive to strong leadership. But the fact that Michigan has Biff Poggi, who there's no one else on the planet that can say what he can say, which is, he's not at Michigan for a paycheck. A lot of people, they may love Michigan, but they love the paycheck too. He's not there for his ego. He's not there for personal gain. He doesn't need any of that. He's there because he loves the players and because he thinks Michigan and believes Michigan to be a special place. I think he had 3 children that are graduates, or the third might soon to be a graduate of the University of Michigan. Like, he loves that place, and he's there for that and that alone. That cannot be overlooked, how important and valuable that is for Michigan. I think he immediately went and met with every single player over the first 48 hours. I know he wasn't sleeping, was talking to parents of players. I believe he interviewed for the job, and I think that's totally fair and understandable. Biff has earned the right. If he wants the job, he has earned the right to pitch himself as the guy to lead this program going forward. He's absolutely earned that right. It's Michigan's job to hire who they think is the best candidate. But again, it's an impossible job. The players love Biff. The players trust Biff. I think the staff trusts Biff. I think the world trusts Biff. I've heard that these have been some of the best practices and best meetings that the team has had in a really, really long time. I think just put yourself in the shoes of these guys. They didn't sign up for this. The best thing for the players is get off social media, and just go play football. Go meet. Go do what you know how to do. Take your mind off these things. But that requires a strong leader in Biff Poggi to get everything organized, and he's been doing that. So this bowl game is really important. I think for Michigan, regardless of the result, just as a signal of unity for them to go out and play a competitive football game, to see Bryce Underwood's take positive steps in terms of his fundamentals, but to just come together and play a game. That is a strong, strong message to the college football world.
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy because with if this didn't all transpire, I mean, this would be. I know it's not a playoff bowl game, but it's Texas versus Michigan too, blue blood. So like
Huge.
it intriguing bowl game too. But like the narrative's kind of flipped now to like the coaching search and everything and the investigations and stuff too. So once it finally becomes game day on December 31st, that maybe they can kind of put that aside and just focus on the game. But in the meantime, like there's still a lot that needs to be settled in Ann Arbor, and a lot of it's. I mean, there's just been a lot of discourse on who is leading the search for with this current investigation into the athletic department too. I mean, is that a deterrent, do you think, for potential candidates, or how would you view this job opening right now?
It could be. It certainly could be. It's less than ideal. I think if you look at, part of the reason you're coming to Michigan is because, for me, it's one of those jobs where you get to find out what you're really made of. Because if you lose at Michigan, you're not going to be able to say it's you lost because you had a lack of investment, or you didn't have the talent, or you didn't have the resources. Michigan is a place that they're going to give you all the tools for you to find out what you're capable of as a head coach, and that's really, really attractive. But on the flip side, I look at the best programs, and there is alignment top down. Signetti in Indiana is a great example. Have you seen a program with more alignment from athletic director, president, university, community, alumni base? I mean, they've given raise and then re-raised and then raised again to Signetti, now both of his coordinators. They've been committed in the transfer portal. They give Signetti all the support that he needs, and you get an entire program headed in the right direction. It's You're kind of hoping that will be the case at Michigan, because that's all you can do, because you don't know who the next president is going to be long term. You don't know who the athletic director is going to be long term. You don't know what the board is going to look like long term. So at some level, you're going to have to trust that, the power of Michigan will prevail, and, you'll get everything you need. Financially, it doesn't matter. If the check gets written and you hold that check in your hand, it's going to clear when you go to deposit it. I mean, that's the truth about Michigan. But I do think it's something to consider here. Like, the programs that win at the highest level, there is complete top-down alignment. And right now, Michigan, I'm not saying they don't have that. I'm just saying we don't really know.
For sure. If let's say Jake Butt is leading the search right now, who would your top targets be?
I agree with everybody that it's DeBoer. Dillingham is, and those guys are really, really different flavors in my opinion. And one is older, more seasoned, has been around the block a little bit. Dillingham is young. He's from Arizona, went to Arizona State, loves that community. Doesn't have many direct ties to Ann Arbor in the Midwest, so but that could be good or bad. I think Kyle Whittington from Utah is a really, really interesting name that just popped up recently. I think he's a phenomenal head coach, and what he's done at Utah is something that Michigan should really, really consider to be their long-term leader. I mean, we played against him, out at Utah, and Whittingham has always put together. He's done more with less, and he's fielded tough football teams. He's a really interesting name. I know it's rumored that Jed Fish has been, he's out. Based on, I haven't been able to confirm anything of what's real and what isn't. I still am really, really high on Jed Fish and think he would be an outstanding hire. But I think it's going to come from those names, specifically DeBoer and Dillingham. Whittingham is another good name that recently emerged, and I would still strongly consider Jed Fish if I was in the leadership position. Of course, I don't know what they know.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, if you would think that Michigan fans are big Sooners fans this weekend for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and you were on on the team when Jed Fish was also on staff too, correct?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
great
What?
coach. I just remember like the first spring ball. Like, I mean, when I was a freshman and a sophomore, when we'd go through spring and fall camp, like the Michigan defense, I can count on one hand how often like the Michigan offense would win when it was good on good. Like the Michigan defense just flat out dominated. And, we would call plays and the opponent would be like calling out. We'd be running outside zone into Kansas State in the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl. And they said, they're running outside zone. And we're all looking at each other like, okay, they know our play. And we had no checks. The thing about Jed Fish is I remember going through that first spring ball. I'm like, wow, like this is what NFL level coaching is like. This is what NFL level game planning is like. We never called a play. We never said set hut and hiked the ball at a pre-snap schematic disadvantage. We had answers built for everything in a simple and digestible way that allowed us to play fast. I just think, and he's coached under legends. Like he's coached under Belichick and Spurrier and McVay and Harbaugh. Go down the list. He's coached great quarterbacks. I point to his record at Arizona. Like this has been the big debate for Michigan fans. Is like you want to hire a guy with this record? Well, Arizona, yeah, his record was 16-21 at Arizona. That was his first ever head coaching job. They had one double-digit winning season in the 2 decades before he got there. They were winless the season before he got there. $200 million in debt. He got them their second double-digit win season. They were 10-3 by year 3 in his first ever rebuild. Then he goes to Washington. And when he got to Washington too, like when DeBoer left, they had the fewest returning experience in the FBS, lost their entire offense, 2 returning starters on defense. So it's been a rebuild. I think like in terms of the principles of what you look for in a head coach, Jed checks a lot of the boxes, So, I don't want to sound like I'm overselling him here. It's just,
Right.
no one needs to sell DeBoer. No one needs to sell Dillingham. The fan base is super excited about those guys. I've just seen so many people put down Jed Fish. I'm like, guys, you got to look into this a little bit. You are missing the total picture here. Fish would be a great hire.
Yeah, you mentioned what he was able to do with your guys' offense. I mean, when you have a quarterback like Bryce Underwood, and it seems like that's what you would want to kind of take that next step as an offense too. But yeah,
Yeah.
again, hey, yeah, that's great insight from you. And yeah, you mentioned like you were a part of a coaching change while you were at Michigan. Obviously, very different circumstances. You guys, I don't think were preparing for a bowl game at the time
We
too. I
weren't.
just, what do you remember about that transition period? About adjusting to like a new staff and a new coach.
I remember how chaotic it was at first. It was like the Wild West. I mean, there was no direction. We named someone to be our like standing head coach. I don't even remember who it was. Like it didn't, it was just chaos and uncertainty and there was questions. Jim Hackett did such a great job though. I remember, what Jim Hackett did was he called meetings with the players. He broke us up by class. He would meet with us all together, and then he broke us up freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and then he interviewed us. He said, "Hey, what are the traits you guys would be looking for in a head coach? What are the traits that you don't think we should look for in a head coach? Like what do head coaches do that you haven't liked?" He asked us about Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, like that because that deal was coming up. Like what was our opinions on there? And I think the magic is I don't know that he got anything out of those meetings, but what he did get was he got us as players to buy into the program and the process. So I think just by, whoever it is, whether it's Ward, whoever, interviewing the players, what you're doing by interviewing them, you're getting the players to get invested, which is it kind of makes it a stickier situation where they're less likely to hit the portal, in my opinion, by doing that. So that was the magic in it. But the one thing about Jim, like, when Jim came in, you have got to have quality coordinators and quality position coaches to win. Period. It's just look at the recent national champions. that's the truth. Look at what Ohio State had last year. Look at what Michigan had when they had their success. Michigan had young coordinators with big goals. I think that's the important thing is you want a coordinator, especially at the college level, where their success, their long-term goals are aligned with your team's long-term goals. Basically, like, Mike McDonald knew he wanted to be a head coach and he knew he wanted to get back in the NFL. He just knew that right away. Well, he knew in order for that to happen, he had to hit a home run in Ann Arbor. So all of a sudden, you're aligned. And now look what Mike McDonald's doing in the NFL. Jesse Minter is the same way. He had big goals. So Jesse Minter knew he had to hit a home run to reach where he wanted to reach in the NFL. The same was true even for Sharon. Sharon had massive, massive goals that got him bought into the process. So I think like that's Jay Harbaugh, another one. Like that's what this next head coach is going to have to go out there and prioritize is, you can't hire your friends. You can't do what's comfortable to win at the highest level. You have to go build a staff of hungry, committed, aligned assistant and coordinators, and just make it like a wealth, a pool, a house of knowledge and intensity and competitive fire. That's how Michigan's going to win at the highest level.
Great insight there. And last thing before I let you go is, I guess, what timing wise, how essential do you think it is to get someone in the fold sooner rather than later? And do you see
Yeah, I mean, that's
a deadline date, or you need to have someone in place by X date?
as soon as possible, but you can't rush it. I mean, I think part of this is it's a trust building process. Like part of the investigation here is maybe you think you have all the information, but you have to go investigate how the athletic department handled this just from a pure trust building piece to the public. And I say that to say, like, you can't rush through this, but we all know the portal opens on January 2nd. That's got to be the target date. Is you need to get someone in there with enough time to be able to meet the players and meet the team and talk to the necessary people to keep the core of this team together, because Michigan has a lot of young talent. We were all excited, looking at how many freshmen were playing on the O-line, Andrew Marsh, Bryce Underwood, some of the tight ends that'll be back, the running backs, the defensive side of the ball has talent. So there is a core in place that's going to allow you to succeed. But right now, I know all their phones are ringing. I haven't talked to them, but it's just obvious. Programs are out there calling up those guys and saying, "Why do you want to deal with this? We'll pay you whatever they're paying you. We'll pay you the same. We'll pay you more. Come join us." And Michigan is in a race to go get a leader to make a counter pitch to keep those players, here in Ann Arbor.
A lot of great stuff from Jake Butt on today's podcast. Definitely appreciate you joining us. Have a very happy holidays, and good luck to you next season. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.